Hey guys, so today I just wanted to share with you a couple simple DIY fiber art kind of inspired boho ornaments. So these are all super easy. You really don't need a lot of materials. It's kind of stuff that you can just, most people have around their house in their craft room or whatever. The first one is this cute little tassel ornament, which is a fun little boho, tassel-y, colorful thing. And then the second one are these Pom Pom ornaments. And then the third is this just like fiber wrapped regular big ball ornament. So let's just get into it and I'll teach you how to make these. Okay, so the first project we're going to make is this tiered tassel ornament. Super simple. It's literally just made of yarn and then you just tie tassels and you can choose any colors you want. So the materials we're going to need for this project are a book or something to wrap your tassel around to measure out your fringe. A couple different colors of yarn. I chose just these neutral colors. Some scissors, a little comb, but you can use your fingers or a fork would work great. And then I also have this accent color which I used to wrap the tassel together. So first step, I'm going to measure the first level of tassel. So I'm using this alpaca llama blend of yarn, which is super soft and pretty. And I have both yarn ends here just to make the wrapping go a lot faster, but it works just the same to use one piece of yarn. So I'm just gonna start on my short side of my book and just hold it with my thumb. And then you're just gonna wrap around about 20 times. This all depends kind of on the thickness of yarn and how actually big and poofy you want your tassel to be. Okay, so that's about 20 times. You can always wrap more if you want. So then I just slit it off and you have this kind of endless loop of yarn. So I'm going to take my scissors and just cut the end. And then I'm just going to cut in the middle of each side. So that's going to create a bunch of these shorter little fringe pieces. And actually this kind of seems like a lot of yarn. I'm probably not going to use all this for the tassel. And then what I'm going to do is take another piece of this same color, and I don't know, it just needs to be maybe 6 inches long, 7 inches long. You can always cut it down. So I'm going to decide how thick I want my tassel to be. Basically, you're going to be folding it in half, and I think that's a little too thick, so I'm going to take a little bit of that out. So then you're going to take your extra piece of yarn, your little 6-inch piece, and find the middle point in this group of fringe. Then you're going to tie a knot around it. Make sure that you're kind of at the middle. You can sort of move it and shift it, and then tie that knot really tight. And this is what's going to end up hanging your ornament. Next, we're going to take our accent color. So I'm just going to measure this out, and again, I'm kind of doubling it as I go because that's just going to go a lot faster rather than wrapping around one single tiny individual piece of thread. And you want this piece to be pretty long because it's going to be wrapping around the whole thing and holding it tight. So it's that section right there. So what I like to do is just sort of grab the whole tassel and kind of bunch it together. You don't want to see this big gap where your knot has kind of created two halves. So I like to start with just holding one end of the accent or wrap yarn, sort of just at the bottom because you can cut off that excess. So I'm just going to start wrapping this around the yarn. And you don't want to wrap it too tightly because we're going to end up putting more tassels underneath it, but you also want it to stay, you know, together. So I'm just going to kind of start wrapping this around. Then to secure it, I'm just going to kind of tie a knot around itself. So I'm using my other finger to spread it out and then pull that tail end through. And then kind of give it a little snug and pull it tight. So now I don't have to hold so tightly on where I began, and I can just sort of wrap it around however thick I want it to be. All right, and then I'm just gonna pull a knot at the end and do that once more. And that feels really secure. So now that's just wrapped around, holding my tassel in place. And then we're just gonna tuck this end in with a tapestry needle. I forgot that that will be another helpful material that you need. So just any tapestry or yarn needle or a sewing needle if that's the only thing you have. So I'm just gonna pull this end through and then start at the top where my end is. I'm just gonna stick that behind the wrap and then down and through the tassel and pull it at the bottom. And then you can just cut this excess off, you know, at the base, and that's gonna hold it just fine for what we need it for. All right, so I'm just gonna cut the bottom so it's even. It's gonna be a lot harder to cut each of the layers to be even after the fact, because then you might, you know, accidentally cut off the layer before it. I'm gonna bunch it all together, and you can use your comb for this too to really straighten out those fibers. All right, and then just start trimming slowly the ends. You can kind of twist it around to make sure it's all sitting nice and even at the bottom. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just looking for defined layers, and this is going to give us that look. Some really nice sharp scissors are going to be best for this. All right, that looks pretty good. So then I'm going to move on to my second tassel. And then this is the second yarn I'm choosing. Once again, I have both ends of this yarn. It's a little bit thinner. Since I had so much extra last time, I'm probably going to go around 15 times of my book. That looks good. Slide that off and cut the bottom, and then cut it in half twice. So once again, I have all these short little pieces of fringe that we're going to use. So then I'm going to take another piece of my first color because I want it to match at the top. Again, this doesn't have to be what you do. You could have multicolors up here, but I kind of like the look of all one unified color. So I'm going to choose a piece of that I cut and wrap that around the center of this tassel and tie a pretty nice knot in the center there. And you can play around with how long you want each layer to be too. Here I had the top two layers are cut the same, and then the bottom layer is cut a little bit longer. So then we're not going to be wrapping anything around the center point because it's all going to just be hidden and tucked underneath this tassel. So with my tapestry needle, I'm just going to weave those ends in. And then I'm going to flip my first tassel upside down and sort of find the center point. So it seems like they're all kind of fraying out from right around here. So just stick the tapestry needle straight in and then try to get it so that it comes out around the top knot of your first tassel. And then just pull that straight through. And what that's going to do is take it underneath your first layer and add a second layer. So then I'm just going to comb around the edges to make sure it's kind of all evenly spread out. So then we're just going to trim the ends so that they're all straight. All right, so now we have 2 tiers of the tassel, and then we're going to add a third. You can add however many levels of tassel you want, really. It could be super long, that would be really cute. A rainbow tassel would be super cute. All neutrals. Just kind of see the vibe that you want to go for this holiday season. So I'm going to take my third color and wrap it around my book. And this time I want it to be a little bit longer, so I'm not going to cut it in half twice when I take it off, but just the one time. All right, that was about 20 times. I'll slide that off. And then I'm just going to cut it in half where the end is. All right, so I'm going to take this tassel, and again, I'm going to pick a piece of the same colored yarn at the top and wrap that around the center point. And then I'm just taking my tapestry needle again, weaving those ends through, and then flipping over my tassel and kind of finding the center point again and pulling straight through. Then I'm going to cut this to the length that I want. Once again, you can do this however long you want it. I'm just cutting straight across. And then with all the yarn at the top, I'm just going to tie a knot at the base, well, at the top of the tassel. Just tie that so everything's all secure, and then just tie another knot at the top, and then cut off the excess. And then there's your hanger. So you'll just hang that on your tree just like that. So there it is, our finished boho fringy tassel ornament. So the second DIY I want to show you is this little Pom Pom yarn simple wood bead ornament. So literally all you need for this DIY is some yarn, some wood beads or whatever kind of beads you want, and scissors. So I'm just going to start out with the tail of my yarn, and I'm just measuring around my fingers. There's a ton of DIYs on YouTube on how to do this, but it's pretty simple. So pretty much however many times I wrap around is how kind of like thick and full the tassel is going to be. All right, that seems pretty good. I'm not sure how many times I actually went around. Cut off the end. You just want to keep this all bunched together so it doesn't come apart. And then you're going to take another piece of string. You're just going to find the center again. So it's pretty similar to how we made our tassel, except we're not cutting off the ends this time. We're first going to wrap it around and then we're going to cut it off. You're going to find the center point and tie really tightly around that. And then keep these two center strings away. And you're just going to cut all of this in half. And this is going to be the start of the shape of your tassel. Do that on the other side. Then it's time to just start shaping your tassel. I like to hold it at the end, and then I just start shaping it around in a circle. So I'm just going to go around, kind of one side, then another side. And our goal is just to sort of create this sphere. You know, and just cut a little bit at a time at first. You can always cut more later. But it's kind of hard if you make a deep cut, then you sort of have to match that with the rest of the side so everything looks even. And the more yarn that you use, the thicker and more dense your pom-pom is going to be. This looks pretty good. I kind of like that this one's a little bit more organic and a little fluffier, and this one's a little bit more dense. So the only difference between these two is that I used a little bit more yarn with this. So all I'm going to do is attach a couple beads, and that's it. Tie a knot at the top of your beads to hold them in place. And then another knot at the top to create your hanger. And then you have this cute little pom-pom ornament. Alright, so for this next DIY, this is just a simple yarn wrapped ball ornament. So all you're going to need for this is any ornament ball. I found this one at Goodwill for 50 cents. And then you'll just need some rope or yarn. The thicker the better, I've found, for this project. What I ran into when I made the first one was that the rope was a little bit too thin. And so when I was hot gluing it, a lot of the hot glue kind of came through each row and it just didn't cover the ball as much as I wanted it to. So I have a solution for that for thinner yarn, but you could also use just really thick yarn and then that wouldn't be as much of a problem. Then you're just going to need your scissors, of course, and a small piece of ribbon or yarn or something to just tie at the top to hang your ornament. So I'm going to first start by cutting 3 pieces of like 8 to 10 foot pieces of this rope. So I have my 3 really long pieces of rope. Now I've just taken it and measured it in half so that there's a loop at the top. I'm just going to make a knot around that loop. I'm going to braid it. Okay, so I'm just using this old candle to hold this down. And then I'm just going to split it into sections of 3 and just start braiding. Braiding really long pieces of rope can be kind of challenging. So if you wanted to just cut shorter sections and then just glue them when you get to the ends, that works too. I think that this should wrap around the whole ornament, but we'll find out. so now I have my really long braid and I have my hot glue, and then I'm just going to take my ball ornament. So I'm just going to start with the first knot, tie that super tight, and I'm just going to cut off the ends. Then I'm going to put a dab of hot glue right toward the base of this little attachment part. And then just glue the top of that down. And then basically I'm just going to wrap a bunch of times around this ornament, kind of gluing in spots. You can also just do a big line of glue. And I'm going to end up cutting off this piece later so that there's not just a huge knot sitting at the top. This is a super cheap and easy way to just sort of level up your simple ornaments and make them look a little more cozy and boho. I really love like simple, timeless Christmas decor. I can already tell I'm probably going to need to braid more yarn. Well, this looks like an acorn. Alright, so that's glued down. I'm going to cut some more rope and then do the same thing, braid it, and start gluing again. It looks like I almost got halfway, so you're probably going to need 3 strands of 20 or 25 foot rope. But I'm kind of glad that I did it in smaller sections because it's a little bit more manageable that way. Alright, so now I have my second braided rope, and I'm just going to continue to keep gluing across. I'm going to cut off this little end. And then I'm just going to kind of take my other end and glue right over it. Alright, and then I'm just going to press that end in really firm and then cut off the tail. I'm going to cut off this section too. Then the top knot I'm going to cut off. And then the last step is just to add your ribbon to the top so you have a hanger. And there you have it, a super easy kind of knit fiber themed ornament. This whole thing probably cost me like $1.50 or something, with the rope that I used and the ornament that I bought, and this was just random ribbon I had lying around. So you can kind of see 2 different looks. This is a more fine look, this is a chunkier, more knit look. I really like both of them, and I think they're going to look really good next to all the other fiber art themed ornaments I have hanging on my tree. Alright guys, so that was my DIY project for today. I hope you guys had fun and can follow along and make some cute little fiber art ornaments. If you guys end up making any of these DIYs, I'd love to see them. Tag me on Instagram. You guys can find the links to that in the bio. And I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe and do all the YouTube stuff, please. And let me know what kind of videos you guys want to see more of. Cheers and happy making!